Hello everyone, and welcome to our last story in our Hurray Sister Suffragettes celebrating 100 years of women's right to vote. My name is Miss Mary, and I'm the children's librarian at the Taylor Community Library. Today I'm going to read Around America to Win the Vote, Two Suffragettes, a Kitten, and 10,000 Miles by Mara Rockcliffe, and it's published by Candlestick Press. On April 6, 1916, a little yellow car set off from New York City. It carried tools, spare parts, a teeny tiny typewriter, an itsy bitsy sewing machine, one stout leather trunk bursting with useful things, two smiling women, and a wee black kitten with a yellow ribbon tied around its neck. The taller woman was Neil Richardson. The smaller one was Alice Burke. Together they planned to drive all the way around America. It was a great big country, but they had a great big cause. Votes for women, Alice told reporters. Votes for women, Nell agreed. They said the typewriter and the sewing machine were all part of their plan. If anyone said women didn't have the brains to vote, then Nell would dash a poem off right then and there to prove they did. If anyone said they should cook and sew and leave running the nation to the men, then Nell would whip up an apron, while Alice gave a speech to prove they could do both. And if the two of them could circle the United States, 10,000 bumpy, muddy, unmapped miles, facing danger and adventure, all alone, with just each other and a kitten, in this little yellow car, well, that would prove that women could do anything. So off they went. That very day they had their very first adventure, when a horse pulling a wagon down a narrow road refused to let them pass. Votes for women, Alice told the horse. Neil tied a Votes for Women yellow daffodil behind his ear. Then the horse stepped aside and let the little yellow car go on its way. In Philadelphia, they stood on their seats to speak to the great city crowd. Neil didn't need to write a poem on her typewriter or sew an apron on a sewing machine. Men and women cheered. But the next morning, a blizzard hit. Nell and Alice dug into their trunk for useful things. They put on their raincoats and their rubber hats and drove through howling winds and swirling snow to Baltimore, where they arrived in time to be the guest of honor at a very fancy party. The trunk held a few useful things for parties too. The next day when they stopped for gas, a crowd of men clustered around the yellow car. Alice hopped up on the seat to give her speech, but no one listened. So she told them all about her car instead. Votes for women, the men said, and waved to Nell and Alice as they drove away. After a quick visit to Washington, D.C., they came upon the bumpiest, muddiest road ever. The little yellow car went bump and squish, and finally they got stuck. As the car sank, Nell and Alice jumped into the icy stream. They cranked and cranked and cranked the engine, but it wouldn't start. Votes for women, Nell reminded Alice cheeringly. Alice grumbled, and good roads. In the trunk, they found a lantern and a blanket and a box of candy from their friends. They huddled wet and shivering under the blanket and ate candy till the sun came up and two strong mules appeared to pull the car out of the mud. In Virginia, Nell and Alice passed a school, and all the children ran to see the little yellow car. They hung all over it and wouldn't let the women or the kitten go till Alice promised to send them a picture postcard from someplace extremely far away. They drove into North Carolina, passing fields of singing birds and butterflies and goldenrods, and nearly fell into a hole where a bridge used to be. Next came deep puddles, sticky clay, and thick wet sand. In South Carolina, a whole town turned out and treated them to all yellow lunch. In Georgia, they joined a circus parade. In Alabama, the two travelers sipped tea and nibbled on stuffed dates. Everywhere they met crowds. Everywhere Nell and Alice told them, V for W. Outside Gulfport, Mississippi, the little yellow car finally found a mud puddle it couldn't cross. They sneaked the kitten onto the train and smuggled it into a fine hotel in New Orleans. Then the little car arrived and they were on their way. They dodged bullets by the Rio Grande, drove on through the desert of New Mexico, and got lost for days in Arizona, till finally they reached California, where they won a medal at the fair for driving a long way to get there, all the way across America. But they were only halfway to the finish line. They still had lots of miles and lots of adventures on the road ahead. This is where they had traveled the blue line, and this was where they still had to travel back to the East Coast. On September 30th, 1916, a little yellow car drove into New York City. It carried mud and dust and signatures and souvenirs from all around America. Two smiling and sunburned women and full-grown cat, they arrived to a grand welcome. And a big yellow cake. The cat ate 7 slices as reported in the next morning Tribune. After 10,000 bumpy, muddy, unmapped miles, Nell was ready for a rest. And Alice, she turned right around and crossed the country all over again. This time, she took the train. The end. And please remember, today is Election Day. So because of these women, you have the right to vote. So make sure you get out to vote. Tell your moms, grandmas, aunts, who's ever of age to vote, have them go out to vote today. Thank you for listening to my story.